What a beautiful black beast today. A new one. Well, not so very new. It was built in 1977, but it's also in the range of affordable SLR cameras. You know, beautiful pieces of technique with beautiful lenses do not have to cost thousands or even hundreds of euros. This combination I bought, well, not with this lens, I must admit, it was with a standard Chinon lens, a 1.9 Chinon lens or 1.7, I can't remember exactly. And I paid 35 euros for the combination. Now, and I bought this camera because, well, first of all, it's a M42 lens mount camera. So all the M42 lens mounts lenses you can use on this camera, which is the Chinon CE-3 Memotron. The Memotron edition, I will come back to you later what that actually means. Well, you see here, it's beautiful M42 lens mount, and you can mount every lens with an M42 mount on it, including like this one. This is a wide angle lens of Chinon, beautiful, beautiful lens. Well, what made me buy this lens? Well, first of all, I do like SLRs, and I prefer they have a light meter built in, because otherwise I have to use a separate light meter, and to me it's not practical. Camera one hand, light meter in the other hand, and you have to fiddle with the light meter with two hands, and so where to leave the camera, and it's too complicated. Well, not very handy for me, so I always try to choose a camera with a built-in working light meter, or a cold or hot shoe on it, where I can put an additional light meter if necessary, if the light meter of the camera is not working or is not present. So I bought this one because I was looking for a camera, a M42 camera with aperture control, aperture priority. I didn't know if it even existed, and when I started looking, I found a few. Some M42 cameras with a additional accessory on it that, you know, adjusts the shutter speed dial, like the Chinon CSM, the Cosina CSM, and the AEC adapter. That is one variation. But for the rest, there weren't actually much solutions for my wish, and that was M42 camera with aperture priority. And why aperture priority? Because, well, when I make a picture, you know, I want to set the depth of field myself, and because that is I use it creatively. So for me, the aperture setting is very important, and I adjust, in a manual case, I adjust the shutter speed according to the aperture. Now, in this case, you set the aperture and the camera chooses the shutter speed, and that is, for an M42 camera, is rather exceptional. And so this is quite an exceptional camera, and that is also a reason why I bought it. Well, let's first look at the features it has. On top here you see the shutter speed dial. It goes from bulb to 4 seconds. From 4 seconds it goes to 1/1000th of a second. You have a X marked here, and the X that indicates a shutter speed of 1/100th of a second, and that operates without batteries. So if you're out of batteries, because you need batteries basically to operate the shutter and to operate the camera, but if the battery runs out, you can also use the X, and then you have a fixed shutter speed of 1/100th of a second, and it works without batteries. So quite convenient. Of course, the cocking mechanism is like this. The shutter release button with here a little lever to lock the shutter relief, the hot shoe, and here we have a mirror lock. So you can lock the mirror if you want to have a longer exposure. It can be handy to lock the mirror so the camera doesn't move when the mirror hits the top of the camera while opening. a compensation dial here from a few stops you can use. Of course, the rewind button, the film counter. In the viewfinder here, there's a little LED. That LED is a battery tester. If you press the release button, then the green light goes on, and that means the battery is okay. Unfortunately, on this camera it doesn't work. Well, it doesn't matter so much. In the viewfinder there is a light meter with a needle, and the needle goes from the, well, underexposure to 1/1000th of a second and overexposure. So it's really a meter, so it can indicate the shutter speed between 160 and 125th of a second, for instance. On the bottom of the camera there are two little screws, well, two little covers here. This one is for the battery. It runs on two LR44 batteries, and this one here you can connect the power winder if you want to. On this side there's a flash socket if you want to use, self-timer. There is an additional button here that is very well, also for that era and for the M42 mount camera. It's pretty amazing. First, let me tell you how this shutter priority system works with a M42 lens. Well, as you can see in the M42 lens here, always have this little pin. And when you press this pin, then the aperture goes to the chosen value, so the aperture closes. Now, in here you have a little lever, and when I press the shutter release button, that lever comes to the front. It presses this button of the aperture closes to your chosen value, and then the camera measures how much the shutter speed would be, and then in the next step it will open the mirror and open the shutter according to the measured time. So it goes basically in two steps, and maybe I can demonstrate it to you with a little. Okay, let's first see. I put the aperture of this camera, of the lens, on 2.8. Now listen carefully what happens. You hear tick tick. The first tick was to close the aperture, and the second one was the opening of the mirror and opening of the shutter and closing of the shutter. That was 2.8. Now we go to 22. You heard it? Tuck, tuck, tuck. It goes, the last two clicks you heard was the opening of the mirror and the shutter and closing of the shutter and the mirror. And on 22, I have to connect the lens a little bit tighter. This one is not so very smooth. 2.8, 22. So that is how the aperture priority works on this camera. And of course you can, put it on 1/1000th of a second, and then you cock it and it goes very quickly. The light meter in this camera in the viewfinder is engaged when you half press the shutter release button. So if you put it on manual and you half press the shutter, the aperture will close a little bit, and then so in manual modus the aperture goes to the chosen value to measure what the shutter speed should be. So when you half press the button, then in the viewfinder, the mirror, in the viewfinder, the scale indicates the shutter speed you should choose here. Of course, you're not obliged to choose that shutter speed if you, for any creative reason, do not want to choose that one. So, I love it how it works. So basically, this camera is a M42, which you can use fully in manual mode. You can completely ignore the light meter. If you do want to use this camera in shutter speeds other than 100th of a second, you do need the 2 batteries, and you also have the choice, the opportunity to use Aperture Priority. Now, if you use Aperture Priority and you cock the shutter, you half press the shutter release button, then in the viewfinder you will see the shutter speed the camera will use. Now, if you see that it's 1/15th of a second, then you don't have to press any further. You can just, leave it and then choose a wider lens opening. Check again. If it's above 1/60th, then choose that one and then release the shutter. There is another button here, and for that era was really, I think, a very nice feature. Well, imagine you have a object you want to make a picture of, and it has a very dark side in the shade and a very light, for instance in the sun. Now, what you can do is you can set the light meter on any spot you want, and you press this button. You see, I've pressed it now, and then the camera holds the shutter speed chosen in Aperture Priority mode. He locks the chosen shutter speed, and if I turn the camera to this side where there's more light, it still uses the shutter speed it chose when pointing at the darker side. So what you basically do is you memorize the shutter speed which was there when you press the button, this button. Hence the name Memotron. Memotron means you can, fix the shutter speed on one point, turn your camera and use that same shutter speed for a different object. Well, I think for that era, it's super. It was a very nice feature which you can use creatively very, very much. So, yes, I love this camera. I really love it, and mostly because I can use every M42 lens and use the Aperture Priority modus. There is, however, one fragile part of this camera, and sometimes, well, I've had 2 of them, and both of them at one point did not release the shutter and the mirror. You hear the click, and that was the click of advancing that lever for the aperture, but it did not click to open the mirror and to open the shutter. I did not open the top of the camera. From other cameras I knew on the bottom there is a lot of activity concerning the shutter and the mirror going on in most cameras. So what I did was I opened the bottom of the camera. I did not take out any part, but I saw there was dust and dirt. So I cleaned it with 98% alcohol. I tried to, if it functioned, and then after a few times it started functioning again. Only cleaning with a brush with 98% alcohol, that works. And from there on I just put, and then you can see the parts that actually move, that actually, are important for that opening and shutting of the mirror and the shutter. And those parts, they were a little bit dirty too. Clean them and put a little bit of Teflon in it as a lubrication. And I did that some while ago, and it's still functioning. So I think it is a very nice camera, but I have the impression that Memotron mechanism can be a bit fragile. But now you know how to fix it. You do not have to take the camera apart. Just take this part off, clean it here thoroughly with alcohol, and just put a little bit of Teflon on the parts that really are important for opening and closing the shutter and mirror. And then it works again. So, well, to conclude, I do recommend this camera if you are looking for, well, it is a unique piece of technique. It's a M42 lens mount camera with auto exposure with an auto modus, which is in this case priority mode, aperture priority mode. It is technically very advanced and it's very nice. It feels very heavy. It's a heavy camera. It feels very well built. This one has some nice patina. You can see here some brass of the top cover coming through, and it's mainly, most of it is all metal what you touch here. So yes, it also feels very well, and it's a unique piece of technique. And well, for that reason, I fell in love with this camera. And I can tell you that when it comes to pictures, the aperture priority mode works perfectly. The light meter is superb. It's still working very, very well. Yes, it is in every way a camera to own, to have. It's well, that's about it about the CE-3 Memotron from Chinon. If you have any questions or remarks or experiences with this camera, please leave your remarks or questions below and I will answer them as soon as possible. Thank you very much.